Hey, everybody, this is Pete. Welcome to tonight's live tennis event, and I appreciate you guys being out there, taking time out of your week to check this out, and looking forward to tonight's topic. I went to Indian Wells. If you're out there, if you could let me know if you could hear me. Oops, I have my other. Hold on. That always happens with my link. But anyway, so if you're out there, just give me a that you can hear me. But tonight, what we're going to be going over is what I got out of going to the Indian Wells tournament. And what I like to do is when I go out to the tournament, I like to watch the pros practice. When you watch tennis on TV, I mean, I still think watching tennis live in a match is special, but TV does a great job. You can capture all kinds of different angles, and unless you're, say, in the front row or something like that, if you're, say, up higher, you maybe can't appreciate everything that's going on, and how these guys strike the ball. But on the practice courts, you can just see and learn so much. Just the way they kind of go about their business, you kind of start learning, like, okay, this is why these guys are so good. And a lot of what I'm going to go over tonight is not rocket science, but it's always good to hear. I mean, the pros, they set the bar for all of us. None of us are going to be, well, maybe there's some people on the call that the young kids out there that maybe can be a pro one day, but for most of us watching this, we don't have any delusions that we're about to go on the tour. But it doesn't mean that we can't take our game to a new level and learn what they're doing, and how they go about their business. That will help us become better at what we do on the court. So I'm just going to go through a presentation. It's 9:02, so I'm gonna give some people time to join the call. So if you're out there and you went to the tournament, let me know. Let me know if you're out there and you went to the tournament and had a good time. Or I know the Miami tournament's coming up. These are a couple of the biggest tournaments besides the U.S. Open that are out there, that we have here in the United States. So they're great ones to go to. Let me know if you guys were there. Who out there has ever been to professional tournament? Let me know if you've been to professional tournament, and what do you like to do out there? You guys like to watch matches, or do you prefer the practice courts? Do you do a little bit of both? Of course, I think if Roger Federer is playing a match, or if Rafael Nadal or Serena Williams, people like that, you definitely want to watch them play a match. But it's pretty cool to watch people practice. Below the video is also a comment section, a Facebook comment section. So if you have a question, you can leave a comment there. Also, you are my eyes and ears. I'm flying solo on this live call, so there's no interview going on. It's just me presenting the material. The presentation tonight probably won't be too long. It will probably be at about a half hour. If anybody has questions and wants it to go longer, we can make it longer. But for the most part, it's going to be pretty straightforward presentation. I will check the comments as much as I can. It's going to be hard for me to check all the comments consistently, because I'm going to be sharing my screen and going through the presentation. So if I don't get to your question, or if I get to it several minutes later, don't be offended. It's just a little harder to kind of run everything when I have to keep talking the whole time. So again, we're at 9:04. I'll probably give it a minute or two before we get started. I do see people are coming into the call. One thing that always helps me out the best is for you to shoot me in the Facebook comments a hello. I can hear you. One of the questions I already asked tonight was, have you ever been to a professional tournament? What do you like to do out there? Do you like to watch the practice courts? Do you like to watch the matches? What's your favorite thing to do at these tournaments? So that Facebook comment section is right below the video. All right, we're at 9:05, and I can see that we have people still coming in, but I am going to start the presentation. One thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen. So when I share my screen, you'll be able to see basically my computer. It takes like a second to set up, and then we're gonna head into the presentation. I hope you guys enjoy it. The topic tonight is basically what I learned by watching the pros at Indian Wells practice. It's just always so inspirational to go out there and see these guys who are just amazing athletes, how they go about their work. You can clearly see, I know we had Clay Ballard on one of our calls where he was talking about the talent code. We can clearly see that it's just not, certainly not talent alone that gets these guys to the top. It's their work ethic. These guys work so darn hard. So all right, I'm gonna share the screen now. And so this takes a second to set up, sharing the entire screen. And let's see if that is working. I have to hit share, boom. All right, I think it's working, and I'm gonna go into my presentation. All right, so here we are. So practice like the pros. So what I want you guys to get out of this is to certainly not have any delusions that you're about to become a professional tennis player. But if you can pick up some of the work habits, maybe a couple of the drills that I go through, the mindset, if you can pick up these things out of tonight's call, then it was a pretty successful call for you. You are understanding what the pros go to do to be the best they can be, so you can be the best you can be. And so in our first clip here, we've got a picture of Novak Djokovic in his primal scream that he likes to do. I notice he doesn't do that as much anymore. I know that kind of drove a lot of fans or people who didn't like Novak, kind of drove them crazy. And there's Rafa, ripped as he always is. But anyway, when I went to watch these guys play and practice on the court, one thing that I could see right away is that the bar is always being raised. I remember going to watch people practice on the practice courts several years ago. I'm thinking back to when I'm like 15, 16 years old, and certainly the pace that they hit the ball at is like night and day. I also think the intensity has increased a whole lot. I think that the bar is being raised. I think all these athletes are feeling that there's just so many people breathing down their throat, down their neck, wanting to take their spot, and that's just not the top pros. I mean, I think especially for the people who are, in that 80, 90 to 100 ranking, they know it doesn't take much to get outside of that top 100 and be looking on the other side, wishing they could get in the tournament. So these guys and ladies, when they come to practice, it's just not hit a couple of balls and, feel the tennis ball. They come out there and they spend a lot of time on the court. Now, again, I was watching them the first couple of days of the tournament. So maybe as you stay in the tournament, you might be practicing a little less. But pretty much everybody who reserved the court for 2 hours. And in fact, the day that I was there watching it, I watched it a couple of days, but the day when I was there watching it, Novak had 2 hours booked in the morning, and then he had another court reservation in the afternoon. Now, I don't know if he went another 2 hours or just an hour. And they start out kind of slow, but just for a limited amount of time. Maybe the first 3 or 4 minutes, you see them just kind of feeling the ball, feeling, getting the height over the net, establishing the rally. So they definitely start out, getting the ball over the net, being consistent. But then it does not take long before they are just pounding the tennis ball. And the thing that is amazing to me is, and if you guys have gone out to professional tournaments, you could probably, attest this. You want to be excited and go see Rafael Nadal practice. You want to see Serena Williams practice. You want to see Federer practice, Novak Djokovic practice, Andy Murray. You want to see those guys practice, and they look phenomenal. But one thing that is amazing is if you look at the next court and you may not recognize who is on the next court, there's very little difference in the way they hit the ball. And which kind of really brings up a question. I mean, when you're watching Novak Djokovic practice, and then you're seeing somebody else who you don't know who it is practice, technique-wise, one thing that's just so in your face is how conditioned these guys are. Watching them on TV and then seeing them in person, these professional athletes, and I'm including the women in this too, they are finely conditioned, top of the line athletes. I mean, they are in such good shape, and it is in your face when you get to see it close up. And that includes the person who's 100 on the tour. I mean, they are all, and that's men or women. I rarely see any women out of shape out there. The men are in unbelievable shape, and they are all working so hard in the practice. I was really floored at how hard these guys practice. So that's the first thing that we can kind of take away from our practice. When you go out there, you can see you can see a couple things happen. You see the pros in the field before they go to warm up, before they go to hit the tennis ball. I shouldn't just say warm up. Before they go to hit the tennis ball, they're all out in this field, and they're warming up. They're doing different things to get their body loose. And then when they go on the court, they hit a couple balls to feel it, and then they just go out, as hard as they can. They're pretty much, they look like they're hitting the ball as hard as they possibly can. They look like they are working their body as hard as they possibly can. There's not much holding back once it gets going. It's pretty impressive. Now you see some of them work harder than others as far as just the way how much they're going to put in that day, but they're all 100% focused. So whether they're practicing hard as far as physically, or maybe they're doing more of just hitting serves, or whether they're just hitting returns, or they're just working on a specific shot, it doesn't necessarily have to be that they're hitting the ball so hard, although they are. They're so focused. You don't see anybody really fooling around out there. So that's the first thing I want you to take out of this, is when you go to that court and you start playing that day, make sure you go out there with 100% focus. And I remember when I did the Legends interviews, Roy Emerson said, well, one thing that's important is to be 100% focused in your practice. And that line really hit home to me when I was watching the pros play. I'm like, wow, these guys are so focused. All right, next thing we're going to go through is some cool drills that I saw, some common themes that I saw, some things you can maybe take. So just some things that struck me as interesting that I thought, wow, that's pretty cool, and a good way to practice. The first drill we're going to do, I've got my pointer here. Hopefully you guys can see that. Is I've got my pointer here, and so this is the coach right here. This is the coach's side, and this is Victoria Azarenka. And what they did, and actually I should say let me correct that. Here's the hitting partner. Here is Victoria Azarenka, and here is the coach over here. And she was working on her volley and her reaction time. So one thing that was kind of cool that she did to work on her reaction time was the feeder right here, who was then going to go into a reflex volley drill with her, would be ready. The coach would basically tell the person to feed, and then she would have to turn her back. So she had her back to the coach, to the feeder, so she can't see. She's basically looking at the fence, and then he would feed the ball in. He would feed it, sometimes right to her on the forehand side, sometimes right to her on the backhand side. Sometimes he'd hit it at her feet. Sometimes he'd make her stretch. Sometimes he'd hit a weak lob that she had to run to the net and go get. So it was a really cool drill to work on her reaction, her picking up the balls with her eyes, which is so important, and her first step. And they did this for quite a while, working on her volley. Then they went and did the same thing to where now the hitting partner would be here, and Victoria would be working on her return of serve. And again, she would not look at the server. She would be, her back would be to the server. She'd be looking at the fence, and then she'd have to go into her split step turnaround and then hit the return. And again, one thing that was pretty cool is every drill that was done, they always spent, and I'm talking about all the courts, they always spent a whole lot of time on each exercise. They just didn't do it. You know, one thing I think we're a little bit guilty of as coaches is you're working with your students, they're struggling, then they start to get it, and you know, maybe they hit like 2 or 3 minutes of the shot the right way. And then you're like, okay, let's move on to something else. The pros do it over and over and over again. They hit the ball perfect, and then they keep hitting the ball perfect, and then they keep hitting the ball perfect, and they'll do that seemingly forever on each drill, and they don't seem to get tired of doing it. They seem to keep their focus up. You know, that's one thing that you notice with a lot of rec players. I notice is that you could do a drill. It starts out at a low level. You get better and better. You get to your peak, and then you're only able to hold that attention span. It's like once you feel like you've got it, it's almost like this mental thing. You're like, okay, yeah, I've got it. Let's do something else. And I wanna do something else. And then the more you actually do that drill, I notice the quality of the hitting goes down. Let me know if you've ever been guilty of that. Okay, but the pros, they seem that they can just focus for the longest time, not get bored with the most, you know, I hate to say it, boring drill. I mean, they can take the simplest drill and be perfectly happy doing it hour after hour. It seems like. Next thing we're going to go to another thing that I noticed that a lot of the pros do, and so this might be fun for you, is they all seem like they do a soccer warm up. So they seem like they kind of ease themselves in the practice. You know, they have their fun time, their little things they like to do, and then they get to business. But one of the things that it seems like all the pros do. So I found this video just to kind of show you. There's a commercial here in the beginning. I guess we're gonna have to watch for 24 seconds. So sorry about that. But this is a video of Maria Sharapova working on her soccer skills, who I didn't know was good at soccer, but if you watch all the pros warm up, they seem like they'll play soccer tennis, to where they're literally kicking the ball over the net and playing like a match with soccer, or they're out there in the field, they're kicking it around. They all seem to be great at juggling. This video right here kind of impressed me. Hopefully you guys can see this. You should be seeing my screen. This video right here impressed me with Maria Sharapova. Look how good she is at soccer. And so this right away, you see the whole time she has to follow the ball. She has to stay on her toes. So it's a great way to warm up when you think about it, because right away, even though you're doing something fun, you have to be focused on what you're doing, because it's very hard to keep the ball going in the air, a soccer ball going in the air, and not letting it drop. So she's having fun there, but you can see she's really into what she's doing. She's very focused. When she misses the ball, she feels, you know, a little bad about it. She wanted to keep it going. So it's kind of like a tennis point, you know, when you finally miss, you're like, oh, you know, and you're trying to keep that intensity, that focus right away, but still having fun, and you're improving the coordination of your feet, which you know, I think a lot of us don't think enough about, is, you know, how good are my feet? We're always looking at our stroke. And one thing, I'm a member of the USPTA, which basically helps coaches, teaches us how to coach, and they always say, look at the ground up. You know, study your students from the ground up, and that basically starts with the feet. You know, how are the feet moving? How are they getting in position? How are they coordinated? And so obviously, if you can be really good at kicking a soccer ball around and match the ball and your foot and your knee and all that, there's probably a good chance that you can do some pretty special things on the court with your feet. Next, another common theme is it seems like all the pros now bring their resistance bands out to the court. So they'll do a quick warm up with the resistance bands out on the court, or they will do it out in the field. So here's a video I found of I think Leighton Hewitt, but it's pretty much they all do the same thing. We're waiting for this video to load here. All right, here we go. This is actually by our friend's Top Tennis Training, who we tried to get a call with one time and didn't come through. But we can say Leighton Hewitt here, and and I noticed that the pros also warm up their shoulders a lot. Their shoulders, their pecs. You can see Leighton's doing a lot of all of that, warming up his shoulders and his pecs at the same time. More shoulder work. There he's working out his forearm. So one of the things that I think resistance bands get more and more popular is you're doing a couple of things. It's easy on your joints. You're able to increase your range of motion, and you're also building your strength at the same time. So you're doing three very important things at the same time, and it's low impact. So if you don't have a resistance band, I think it'd be a good investment, a great way to warm yourself up. And I noticed that all the pros do it, and you can use that band for everything. You can basically have it warm up your whole entire body. As he's warming up his arms there, but you can also then get it down on the ground and stretch out your hamstrings and your calves and all that kind of good stuff. So resistance band, common theme, seems like every single pro uses them. What I'm going to do is I will go to the main presentation page here for a second and just ask if anybody, this will take a second. If it gets a little ugly, I apologize. But does anybody use resistance bands out there to get yourself loose or as a part of your workout? So I will just see if anybody has. No comments there. So hopefully you guys are enjoying this presentation, but so far you're leaving me hanging with the comments. I'm going to cry, but that's okay. I'll keep going. Next thing that we're going to get into, what the resistance band. Another thing that was in my face at the Indian Wells, I got to watch Novak practice, and I was right in the front possible. I mean, I was sitting basically right on the fence, and I got to watch him do his return to serve up close. Now, this is not an actual video of mine, but it was pretty cool to watch him up close get into his ready position. So let's take a look at Novak's ready position here, where you can really see he gets down low. I think even since this recording, it looks like he's playing at the Sony Ericsson. I think he gets down even lower with his legs. So you can see this nice shape here, sticking the booty out, comes here, perfect athletic foundation. There's a guy named Pat Doherty who works for IMG Academies. He's actually got something called the I think it's the Arc Trainer belt or something like that. I need to look it up. Maybe I'll send it in tomorrow's email. But it basically teaches you have the perfect athletic foundation balance, and Novak maintains that, especially in the return to serve. So you're always going to see him here, and I think even since this video, he gets down lower. So when you're going out there to return serve, a couple things you want to look at is you want to get a nice wide base in your legs. He always has his legs just outside of his shoulders. Okay, I noticed that some people returning serve, they usually stand straight up. Their feet are close together. Novak, it seems like over the years, he's also getting his feet wider and wider in his ready position. He's even sunk the butt down lower, so he's got more spring in these legs. These legs are getting ready to spring more into a ready position. You can certainly see the head's in perfect balance, gets really focused. I don't know if you've ever seen him when he gets ready to return. Sometimes he opens his eyes real big. And so then we're going to play it from here. So he's down there, he's low. When that toss goes up, see right now he's seeing the toss, and he's getting his split step. He's getting a couple of split steps. And then here's the other thing that I'm noticing all the pros are doing, really making sure that you're making that first turn in your hips, okay? Lots of players at the club level that I coach on the court, they'll get their body completely sideways. So like this leg would be more over here right now, and you get in a sideways position and trying to really step into the ball. Novak, a lot of times on his return to serve, doesn't even step into the ball. He'll just hit an open stance, either forehand or backhand, or what he'll do is something I call step through, to where he'll hit on the open stance and then lunge this leg forward as he's hitting. Instead of like a step hit, a more traditional step than hit, he'll either be stepping and hitting at the same exact time, so he's like kind of lunging at the ball, or he'll actually hit with his hips open and then kind of step through the shot after that, or just hit completely open. Rarely will you see him do a traditional time step hit. Let's see what he does here. Here he's getting ready to turn. Now he see again, it's kind of like a jump. He didn't really, and then that foot comes forward. See that? So it was more done. Let's watch that one more time. It was more done in the hips. And I saw him do this a lot. This is actually a very similar look to so he's turn, boom, lunging using the hips, and then that foot comes forward. So that's kind of, again, a step through with a little bit of a jump. But his ready position was very much in your face at the on the practice court. And that's something I think we all can take away and really work on our ready position, our return to serve, rather than just kind of like staying there waiting for it. Getting down there lower. Yes, it burns the legs a little bit, but we got to get in a little better shape. All right, next. This is a picture. I don't know if you can see it very well, but this is a picture I took of Roger Federer and Stan Wawrinka. It's actually when I first got there. They were the first two practicing. And this is kind of another common theme, is that the pros, they make that court their home. They don't mind spending a lot of time out there. And when they take their breaks, they tend to take long breaks. They don't usually just go over there for like, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, or even a minute. You'll see them often sit there 3 to 5 minutes, sometimes even on the long end, 10 minutes, but what they do, and there's kind of like, one thing that was kind of cool to watch is Federer and Wawrinka talked a lot. You could see they were catching up a lot, which was really cool. It almost looked like they were at Starbucks, totally relaxed, totally having fun. I saw lots of other people, especially if they knew each other, they would do that on their rest. They wouldn't rush their rest to get right back out there. So they would have a long intervals of practice, really work on something for a long time. And then when they took a break, they really chilled out because they know that once they hit the court, it's right back to business. So that's another thing. When you go out there and play, don't be all business. Be business when you're hitting the ball. And then really enjoy your company, who's ever with you. Enjoy them. Take the time to see how they're doing when you guys sit down, and don't be in a rush to get back on the court. Really let your mind relax, get set, check out of what you're doing. Almost just enjoy the moment, feel at home on the court. I think that's another thing that these guys, they live on the court, so why be miserable out there? Have fun, enjoy each other. Lots of long rest. But then once these two guys got up from the chair and they were just chilling out, I mean, immediately you just saw the flip, the switch flip, and you saw them get refocused right away and right back to work. So that was kind of cool and kind of an interesting thing. I was surprised at how long the rest period was, but they also worked on each individual drill for a long time. Next, we're going to get into Novak, his practice, kind of from A to Z, what he did, because what he did, a couple of interesting things about it, but there was also a basic structure to everybody's practice. Sure, people did little things here and there, but the structure of the practice was pretty much the same all the way through for everybody. So I'm just going to show, just to get you guys in the mindset, I just show a little video of Novak practicing with baby fed, and then we're going to go into what they did step by step. So enjoy this. Kind of a cool video. I will be quiet. Hopefully this is playing nice for you guys. Look at that form on his serve. Just beautiful. Here we go. Here's his return to serve. Again, look how he comes, does the turn. And look at that lunge through afterwards. Did that a lot. Very interesting. Beautiful overhead. He gets himself to what I call seesaw. Look how the shoulders, this shoulder's down, this shoulder's up. So, you don't see Novak miss many overheads in the net there. Really good form. Now, one thing that was interesting on watching his volleys, look how quick. He's always getting a double split step in there. And he liked to practice his volleys just behind the service line, then just inside, because you have to have better technique there. So of course he wants to close off volleys, get closer to the net when he's playing a match. But he liked to practice the volleys from kind of far away. And I know lots of us as recreational players will get right on top of the net, and it's easy to kind of get sloppy up there. But you're starting further back, you got to have good technique to be able to get the ball back to your partner. There's maybe the best backhand on tour right now. Here we can kind of see how quick they're starting to get warmed up. They're starting to challenge each other a little bit. He's starting to get his feet really moving. They really focus on their feet. So you're going from side to side. So you can see how light Novak is on his feet. He's always on his toes. If you see back there in the gray shirt back here, that's Vida, his old coach. So that was kind of interesting to see him at the tournament. I don't know if Boris showed up later. Here's baby Fed. You can really see now they're kind of in full gear now. You can really see those feet moving. See how wide he went out there for the open stance. Just an amazing looking backhand. It's beautiful. One thing I noticed, look at how pronounced their tossing arm is. Look, that almost goes back. That's another separator that I think if we can work out there, that's going to be a huge advantage for you if you can really get that just exaggerated ball tossing arm way up there. On that court back there, by the way, that's Sasha, and he was hitting with Victoria Azarenka, and he was Serena Williams' hitting coach, so our hitting partner for many years. So I don't know what happened there. Look at the feet. You can see they really work themselves hard. They run hard for balls out there. They're not just going easy at it. Okay, that was the end of the video. All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. So now what we're going to go through is we're going to go through their practice, Novak's practice from A to Z with Baby Fed there. So they come out, they're casually talking to each other at the net, and then they come out and hit, and they basically hit straight up and down. They start slow for maybe a minute or two. The ball is getting higher over the net, back and forth, feet on their toes, but not pumping too hard. And then gradually, all of a sudden, you start to see this ball go back and forth faster and faster. There's like a rhythm to their warm up to where you can see like they're like, okay, let's kind of gradually open this thing up. So they don't go from 0 to 100. It's slow, and then it builds, and then it builds. So I think that's something that you want to think about as you're warming up yourself. Make sure if you're like if you're like a volume dial. Let's say you're a volume dial on a radio. Start out at about a 2 or 3. Then all of a sudden, you move up to 3 or 4 on the dial. Then 5 or 6, 7. Then these guys probably were getting to about 8 to 8.5 as far as how hard they could hit the ball. That's what they'd hit at, and they hit quite a while up and down the court for quite a while. And it seems like almost everybody does this. They just hit up and down the court for a while, and then after that, they go into directional. So the next thing they did was then Novak moved over here. Baby Fed was over here. By the way, you don't have to get all the way back to the middle. They'd be here. They'd run out for a ball. They get to about right here, split step, here to here. Not all the way back to the middle. That's just inefficient moving. It's not realistic. So actually where this ball is right here, this white ball, this is about where you need to recover, maybe a little bit more in there. And they go back and forth cross court for quite a while. And then they did the other direction. So you always saw the cross courts. I didn't always see everybody rally down the line as much. Some people did, but everybody did cross courts because you want to master the cross court. You want the nice, deep, high ball to the corner. That's how you're going to dictate points the most. And so every court did that. The next thing they did is a classic. They went where one would go cross court, the other would go down the line, then cross court, down the line. And they did this for quite a long time. This was probably what they did right before they took their first long break. And this is a great drill. And if you are not tired after doing this drill, that means that you are not either running hard enough or you're just not consistent. So this should be a drill to where you are very tired after you're done. And you can get, if you're good at it, you can get tired pretty quickly. But they did this for a pretty long time, and then they switched directions. And it was pretty cool to see how these guys covered the court doing that drill. The next thing they did is they took a nice long break. They just kind of chilled out after that. And then they both came up and worked on their volleys. And we saw that Novak, he liked to practice his volleys further away from the net and volleyed for a pretty long time. Then Baby Fed came up. Now, he liked to volley closer. I think he was kind of testing his hand speed. So he was a little closer, working those hands. He had great hands, great touch. And they did that for a while. Then they practiced their overhead for a long time. And one thing that's interesting is how they go through each step. They don't skip any steps. And that's another thing that Rod Laver said. You can't skip steps. And you see that. You're like, these guys, they know how to hit an overhead. Their timing just seems perfect. When you're watching them practice, like, well, why do you guys need to keep practicing? You're pretty much perfect. So how much better can you possibly get? But they go through everything very methodically. So then they go through the overheads, and they actually hit a decent amount of overheads. That was probably the things maybe they didn't work out as long on, but they still made sure it was in a pretty good rhythm. Then after that, they practice serving. And this is something that, we certainly don't do enough of. They spent a long time practicing their serve. Then what they did is they would start to practice serve, and then they practice the return against each other. Then they practiced serve. Then they played a couple points to get just a couple points. They didn't really keep score. And then they started to play games. And by this time, they were well into an hour and a half of the practice. And Dimitrov started to double fault a pretty decent amount for a pro. At one point, I think he even double faulted 2 times in a row. And then maybe like another 3 points went by. Double faulted again. And then he started to get frustrated. He said, not again. And his coach pulled the plug on practice. He went over to Novak's coach, and he said, you get to see them talk, like kind of like let's end this, because you could see that Dimitrov was getting frustrated. And so you're looking for the little things that separate these guys. Dimitrov was clearly frustrated, not like he was acting like a big baby and totally out of control, but he was visibly frustrated. Novak was very businesslike the whole time. And so what happened is Dimitrov left, and you're like, okay, Dimitrov left, practice is over, Novak's probably going to leave too. Well, Novak stayed out there for an extra 20 minutes working on his serve. Just worked on his serve over and over and over again. He worked on his kick serve, he worked on his serve out wide, mostly worked on more spin serves than flat serves, but he also put in some flat serves. But worked on it a very long time. Then he had his coach, Marian Vita, was then practicing his return. He's got to be in his 60s. You could tell he used to be a good player, but he couldn't get many balls back. But he finally started to get the ball back, and then Novak would work on putting the ball away. And they did that together for quite a long time. Then Marian came up to the service line, which you basically see every single practice. Who's ever got a coach with them, you're going to see that coach come up here and serve and worked on the return. They worked on that for a good 15 minutes. So that was kind of like the little takeaway for me, is it's those little things that separate the champions. And then I watched him play Murray, and it wasn't a very close match, but there's little moments in a match that can make things close. And Novak got down love 30, and then his serve totally bailed him out. And I'm thinking, it's little things like that you do on the practice court that show up in the matches, staying that little extra time. He could have had a great practice. I played with a top, player in the world, number 11 in the world. We hit for a long time. I already practiced my serve a lot. I already practiced return to serves. I've already played games. No, he stayed after and worked on his serve and his return. And, look what happened. He ended up winning the tournament. So that was his practice in a nutshell. But what was cool is during the practice is Novak had a fan to the side that had a sign that said Novak's #1 fan. So I thought one thing that was cool is watching Novak be such a workman, so businesslike out there. But then after the practice is over, he totally turns, his fun side on, turns on his charm. And so I'm going to show you how he ended the practice after he worked and stayed after. He did the extra reps. He still came over to all of us and went through autographs and remembered that this one kid had a sign, #1 fan. So I'll show you this video. I'm going to turn up the sound on it too, so hopefully you guys can hear it. So hold on here. Let me get the sound going for you guys, and I'll get the full screen. This is pretty cool, I thought. I don't know if you're a Novak fan out there or not. I love Novak. Federer's my favorite, but the more I watch Novak, I just think he's a good all-around guy who really has a good heart. So this is pretty cool. So a pretty cool video. You know, if Novak, he does a pretty good job acting. If he's not genuinely really having a good time and liking the crowd. I'm going to stop the screen sharing now. So I'm back. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that presentation. Just wanted to show you what the pros are doing out there, and it was pretty cool to see Novak, after working so hard, spend the time and sign the autographs. Of course, a lot of them do that, but not all of them do, and he seemed to be one of the better ones with the crowd, and it was neat to see that with our top guys and our top ladies that the sport is being so well represented, so many class um, so many class acts out there. So anyway, that is tonight's thing. I'll just wait a second. If anybody has any questions, I'll wait a minute for a question or two. But I just wanted to share that with you guys. I thought it was interesting, all the things that they do. Let me know if you have any questions, any comments, what you get out of watching the pros practice. Is there anything that you've learned, that you've picked up, that you could share with me right now, as far as what you learned when you're watching these tremendous athletes go about their business? So I will wait around for a minute. I'll refresh my my website here to see if there's any more. I see Mike said he uses the resistance band during the workout, but haven't used them in the workout, though it would help. So yeah, it definitely would help. They all use it in the warm up, so I think that would be a good thing to start doing there, Mike. And I think that's about it, guys. So I hope you all enjoyed the presentation. I will make it available on replay. And so if you want to watch it again, or if you didn't get to watch this tonight, you'll be getting to watch it over. I'm going to refresh one more time. And then if no further questions, I am going to shut down the talk for tonight. So everybody have a good night out there. Hope you enjoyed tonight's presentation, and we will see you soon. We are still going to be getting, from what I understand, we're still going to be able to get a call with Emo, so that will be there. We're just working on getting a date for it. All right, everybody have a great night. I am going to find the stop broadcast screen, and take care.